Good morning and good afternoon for some. Thanks for joining FSMA Friday for February 2021. My name is Aaron Bolshaw, the moderator for FSMA Fridays, which, as you may know already, is an ongoing monthly industry update for food and beverage facility operators. Think about your quality assurance, your safety, compliance pros, everybody that keeps us safe and the food tasting good on the shelves. SafetyChain teamed up with the Atchison Group to bring you guidance and thought leadership on a whole host of topics revolving around Food Safety Modernization Act and also beyond just FSMA. But today's presentation is one we've been getting a ton of questions about more and more over the last 3 months, it seems, dealing with how we all should be measuring our food safety culture. So we've got a great bit of knowledge. We've got a great presenter. Before we get started, though, I just want to make sure everyone understands. You're on mute, but we do want to hear from you. So send us questions through the presentation console on your right, and we'll get to them at the end. We'll save some time. So we will stay flexible with our time today as well. It's scheduled for 30 minutes, but I have a hunch we're going to get a lot of good questions, so we'll stay flexible with our time. This is being recorded, and everyone who's here or just registered will get a link to the presentation and the video after it's all done, so stay tuned. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce to everyone our topic presenter today, Dr. Liliana Casal-Wardle. She's a Senior Director of Food Safety at the Atchison Group, and she's got a ton of experience. So she's held technical and global leadership roles across food safety and quality at Hershey, which is great. She's joining us from Hershey, Pennsylvania still. So, and really her expertise goes across the whole spectrum: food safety culture, science, food defense, which is always a nice fun one, cleaning and sanitation, micro monitoring, GFSI requirements, quality assurance, you name it, she's got it, including a Ph.D. in organic chemistry from the University of Buenos Aires. So certified SQF practitioner and a FSMA preventative controls individual. She's got it all. She makes my MBA look like nothing. So ultimately, Dr. Casal-Wardle, thank you so much for joining us. This is a fun topic we have in front of us. Yeah.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for having me. Yes, it is. It's one of my passions. I'm really happy to join you all and hope we have a nice chat together.
Yeah, we definitely will. Yeah. So, well, this whole business of measuring culture, it's not an easy thing to wrap our heads around. And we're getting a lot of questions from our clients, right? I know a few of our customers specifically joined up. We had CFOs ask their teams, hey, get in here. We got to figure this out. Because, yeah, we do need to figure this out. And so, Doctor, will you take us through, first of all, like the high level, right, of FDA's new guidance, the 4 core elements of the new era of food safety, and then we'll just kind of build from there.
Yes, it would be my pleasure. So FDA started on a strategy. It's a 10-year strategy to enhance the capabilities of FSMA through the new era of smarter food safety, with 4 core elements, which are tech-enabled traceability, given the importance of understanding where things are coming from, having a better data management to better track and have a fast reaction when there is a deviation, developing smarter tools and approaches for prevention and outbreak response, which is critical also to protect the consumer, incorporating new business model for retail, for food service, which were areas that were a little bit on the sidelines before, and now they're full blown into the FSMA model. They're getting channeled into that more and more. And then food safety culture, which is a pillar, and Frank Dennis, who's the commissioner for FDA, has a long experience in that. He is a leader in food safety culture. I was lucky enough to take his class at Michigan State when he was teaching there. And he makes food safety a fun experience with culture component. It's always fun, but he makes it even more fun. What FDA is looking for is to develop the food safety culture social marketing plan to align the literature and support research on challenges, bring science into understanding the challenges, to encourage influencers. Every culture needs an influencer that drives the culture, to ensure that the pillars of education, training, and inspectional tools are strong, and to enhance food safety culture principles and behavioral science, and to develop tools that company can use to assess the culture. Okay, more and more we are looking at the tools to help us. So let's jump into food safety culture. What is a culture? A culture, there are many definitions of food safety culture, and you can say that a culture is patterned ways of thought and behavior that characterize a social group, which can be learned through socialization processes and persists through time. I like this definition. I think it has it all. Coral, Bryant, and Henderson presented this in 2001. I think one of the best ones I have seen is the one that is on the GFSI position paper, which is a paper on the culture of food safety. There was the working group that developed this paper, defined culture as the shared values, beliefs, and norms that affect the mindset and behavior towards food safety in, across, and throughout an organization. Why is this so important? Because it's shared values. It means that it's not just one person doing it, it's a team of people. It's a big group of people that have the same shared valued beliefs and norms, and people feed into those values and create a cohesive model that has a little bit of the input of each component, of each person, of each individual as part of the culture. That affect the mindset and behavior because those beliefs and mindsets are impacted by multiple factors. And in a work group environment, we are affected by the group. The group affects us, we affect the group. So building a culture that has the mindset and behaviors and they're shared and they're managed together creates a strong believing team that are in that together. Okay, so they become powerful, they become strong. Okay. Across and throughout the organization means that this is not a QA function, this is not a food safety function, this is not an engineering function. It's in everybody's function. It's in marketing, it's in sales, it's in logistics, it's in every area of the organization. It's in the mindset of in the retail, every person that prepares food, every person that sells the food, everybody has that mindset of culture that belongs to the culture of the company and is leading the success of food safety. Oh, let me go backwards. I think I jammed like 5 slides.
There you go.
There
I'm glad you actually said that. Liliana, I really think that was a great way to put that. It is everyone's business, right? That then becomes the culture. I think you said something that was really interesting to me. I'm a marketing person by trade, and you included marketing in there. But I tell you what, there's a lot of times when I look at a website as a vehicle to communicate some things, and one of those things you can communicate is that culture. So when I look at our customers who have a dedicated page on their website about food safety, that's where you start to, I think, have a lot of fun. That's when you have a deeper culture set in a food or food manufacturing, where you do see food safety as an actual cultural attribute, right?
Yes, and it's, I mean, there's companies that have a food safety culture page. There's companies that have food safety culture in their mission and vision. They have it in their conversation with the consumers, and the consumer looks for that. Okay, the consumer is aware, and the consumer follows brands not only because the packaging looks pretty or it's attractive. The consumer wants the experience of eating and eating, okay, and wants to make sure to go back. So you're looking at those standards for food safety that are consistent, that are throughout the organization, and when you go to a marketing role like yours, that when marketing develops a product and considers food safety as part of the necessities of the product and how they're going to build it safe and how they're going to source those ingredients to make them safe and how they're going to consistently deliver safe product, it's going to be something that it's going to be paramount for success.
Welcome.
I think somebody needs to mute. Okay, so again, thank you for your question, Aaron. Talking about food safety culture, okay, this model was developed by Frank Yanas in his book, Creating a Behavior-Based Safety Management System, with the mindset that you have to create risk awareness, you have to understand associated risk in products, understand the risk and process deviation and manage those, and use a variety of tools for success. Okay, create expectations, educate and train. It's one of the most important pillars. Communicate, 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 explain the objectives, manage the objectives, be open to questions. It's not a one-way conversation, okay? Create goals and accountability that are realistic and measure those goals and accountabilities and measure the success through the behaviors of the people, okay? Part of measuring a culture is not just looking at your control for the critical control points and say, yes, they were done. That's great. But look at how the people are managing it. Look at how they're doing it. Are they doing it on time? Is it something that consistently is being done right? Because that shows you where you are in the culture model. That's one of the ways of seeing it, okay? So reinforce also whatever you learn. It's an ongoing continuous improvement model of growth. Again, I'm jumping like crazy.
If you want, I can help out. If you want, I can just take control of the slides, Liliana.
Please, yes.
No worries. I'll move forward. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, so this is very important. What is the culture paradigm? We have cultures that are task-based and cultures that are role-based, okay? A task-based culture is a matrix driven by work. So people are related in that culture through the work they do, okay? Versus in a role-based culture, it's hierarchy driven by title. Who's the manager? Who's the worker? Who's the director? A task-based culture is collaborative, and a role-based culture can have conflicting agendas because the manager might want something different than what the operator is doing, or the director is in his office and thinks that the manager is doing something different than what they're doing. In a task-based culture, you have equal visibility among all departments, versus in a role-based, you have an unbalanced representation and diminished. So the voices of the workers are not heard or are heard with less frequency. And as you go growing in the escalation of the company and the hierarchy of the company, you are hearing less and less and less of what is happening with the bottom, with the workforce, with the operators, okay? In a task-based culture, QA and QC are gatekeepers, and in a role-based culture, QA and QC are police officers. In a task-based culture, findings are seen as opportunities, and in a role-based culture, they're problem-focused. Everybody's looking at that problem and trying to solve it, and we're giving opinions, and versus in a task-based culture, an opportunity is an opportunity for learning and an opportunity for growth, not a mistake, okay? In a task-based culture, you have equal ownership, and in a role-based culture, you place blame. When something happens, it's wrong, and you start placing blame. It was his fault, it was their fault, it was somebody else's fault. So the most important bullet point here is empowered employees. In a task-based culture, employees are empowered. They work together. When there's an opportunity, they address it. In a role-based culture, there is no ownership for the tasks. The employees are powerless, and they're always looking at the higher level to solve the problem. So think of the mindset of it's our problem versus it's not my problem. You get a lot more result when everything turns to be our problem than when you're treating it not my problem, brushing it away from you. We can go to the next. So I talked a little bit before about the GFSI position paper that the working group, there were about 30 companies that got together to work with GFSI and developed this guidance on how to understand, manage, and benchmark and measure food safety culture. And they created 5 dimensions of food safety culture. These 5 dimensions had to do with the vision and the mission, the people, consistency, adaptability, and hazards and risk awareness. So the vision and the mission is a leadership responsibility, is setting the direction of the company, is creating the expectations, is defining what are the values of that business and what's the purpose of that business. And it's about leadership and messaging. Leaders own the food safety culture in any industry that you look. They are responsible for it, they own it, and they have to, their responsibility is to walk the walk, not talk the talk, okay, to be successful. The most important component of a food safety culture are the people. And those stakeholders are your whole supply chain, where you provide direction and governance on things that are going to be done, how you're going to build them, what are going to be key responsibilities, okay? Enhancing communication throughout the organization is a key pillar for success in a food safety culture. And communication of what needs to be done, understand what is the role of the person involved, of every person in that area that has a responsibility. What is the role? Allow them to ask questions, to provide input, okay? Create a learning organization where learning and education are one of your most important pillars. And I want to make the difference between education and training. When you educate, you're showing people why they're doing things, what's the best way to do it, and even getting their input on how to do it better. When you're training, you have already developed how you're going to do it, and you're training in how you're going to do it and what you're going to be doing every day. And it's a consensus of understanding. Everybody knows they're going to have to do it, but if they understand why is it so important to do it, you're much more successful because you have empowered them to be part of the solution. And then incentives, rewards, and recognition. It's always good to recognize great work, and it's always important to have corrective and actions and consequences for work that was not adequately executed, okay, or not adequately communicated. The consistency. The culture is a great tool to guarantee consistency, okay? I mean, consistency throughout an operation, consistency consistency on what you do and being accountable of what you do. What does that mean? I mean, if something goes wrong, be accountable. Don't be afraid. Just say it. Accountable of every activity from leadership to the bottom, okay? Performance measurements to see how things are going. Measure the strength and the health of your culture. And 8, strong, easy to manage, clear, targeted documentation so that you keep track of what is being done and how it's being done. Other key component of the culture is adaptability. You have to have clear expectations of the food safety and the current state of the food safety, and adapt to the changes that happen either internally or externally, regulatory changes, knowledge of opportunities within your operation. You have to be adaptable, you have to be agile to implement those changes, and you have to learn how to manage change in your organization. Change is scary at the beginning, so you have to manage it with the mindset of a team to make sure that you execute it correctly and it stays. Change is creating a new habit. So when you're creating a new habit, you have to create the tools for the people to understand why you're changing it and how is that going to help them on the everyday and why it is important. And then in the hazard and risk awareness, to understand the foundational hazard information and education, look for regulatory changes, give access science information that explains type of risks that you're managing, and communicate those changes. Keep employees engaged through all the opportunities that I have talked about, and have a verification process for your hazard and risk awareness, which really drives you to understand what's working and what's not in risk management, okay? So test your systems, test your culture. We can go to the next one. Next, yes. So look at that. When you build a culture, we are on, I really enjoy this part. That's why I said that. We build a maturity model because it's a way of knowing where your culture is, taking the temperature. It's understanding where your culture is and where you want it to be. So where do you start? I mean, when you start building a culture, you start from the beginning, okay? You start walking that road and you probably have good culture. Usually when you start, you have a business model that is more reactive, more QA dependent, that is looking at when something happens, how am I going to address it? When you have a problem, who's going to take care of it? And then the culture starts growing to be more proactive. You have implemented more trainings, more education programs. You have empowered your employees. You have created good communication tools. So you go growing your maturity model. When you become best in class, you have an in-depth understanding of proactive risk management. So you have tested it, you know it works, and you have a mindset of continuous improvement. What can I do better here, and how can I help others be better as well? Okay, so you are exporting knowledge. The recommendation that I have is always build a maturity model. Try to use the GFSI paper, because it's very helpful to look at each of those dimensions and see where your company is to develop your maturity model and what are the goals that you want to accomplish as you grow to show that your culture is maturing. The maturity model is also a good way to verify where you have opportunities in your culture by establishing surveys, interviews, conversations to understand really if your workforce feels the same way as you do or where the culture is, okay?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So Liliana, I've got a poll. I wanted to just take everyone's temperature very quickly. So everyone, if you would just kind of turn your attention to your screens, I'm going to pull up a poll. And I'd like everyone to be really honest with this, right, about the maturity model. We don't know who's saying what, but you know, just like to get an overall perception from, we've got a few hundred people in here, great attendance today, and I'm curious where people would put themselves in their plant in that maturity model. And so while this is launching, and you know, request everyone to go ahead and use some time right now to vote. I want to say, so there's a couple of things there that you said. Change management's hard, right? But putting somebody in place that has sort of a passion for this, like you're a great example, right, Liliana, where you've got this built-in passion. You feel and you understand how culture can really affect the overall success rate of getting that food safety culture up and going. Look for people in your organization that have that spark, right? That don't look at this as a chore, right? That actually take it to heart, that says, hey, you know, we can do something about this and change the you know, the way that and the dynamic that an organization looks at the food safety culture in general. So we've got a bunch of people coming in. We got about 63% voted. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Last couple of seconds for anybody to vote, and we're going to share the results really quick. Liliana, I'm curious. It should pop up on your screen too here in just a moment. You know, we have most of the people in that good. Most of the reactive, we got the QA department. What would you say about these figures that you're seeing?
Well, first of all, congratulations, because it's a good analysis, and I mean, I'm happy to see that some 62% are thinking they're good because and 34% think they're great, because they have this mindset of continuous improvement. They want to get better. They want to improve. There's always opportunities for improvement. So the mindset of continuous improvement is a very important tool to grow your culture. Okay, hard to get to the point where you say I'm always best in class, and I agree. There's probably some people here that are best in class because they have a great culture in place. They've been working on it for years, and they have fixed all the areas of opportunity that they could have. More are going to come. Okay, so there's going to be opportunity to get better.
Yeah,
and that is a great challenge. Okay. So
yeah, and it'll continue.
Great question.
All right, so let's think about GFSI assessments next.
So in 2015, GFSI published the paper, the position paper from the working group, and it was a paper really to provide direction to the industries, from the mom and pop industry to the big industries, on what to look for to implement, develop, and measure a culture and benchmark on a culture. So now we see that both SQF, PRC, and FSSC 22000 have incorporated those in their assessments. Okay, and if you look at what they're asking, okay, they're focusing. I mean, if you look at the three of them are focusing in leadership. How is management owning and managing the culture, right? So are there objectives? Is there a policy for food safety? Do they have the resources? Are the practices being followed? Is there a communication structure? How are they communicating with their staff and their employees? Okay. Are the staff encouraged? I mean, how do the people understand what leadership is asking them to do? Is there good communication? Is people feel empowered? Are they encouraged to continue to do what they're doing and to do it better? Okay. Do they own it? Can they resolve food safety issues? And if you look at the three in different ways, the three of them are defining the same thing. Okay. So let's go to the next one and talk a little bit on how the auditor is going to do this in your facility. And it's going to vary. So what will the auditor look for when auditing a site on food safety culture? The auditor is going to look for, I mean, do you have a plan? I mean, do you have a policy? Do you have, how is management working on food safety culture? Is there a commitment and leadership that enables that development? Do they review it? Do they have conversations on how to communicate better, how to educate better, how to train better? If the auditor decides to interview employees, which that's one of the good ways of doing it, when they talk to the employees, are they really understanding? Is the message that the employees feel that they know what to do in a food safety incident or how to manage the risk of food safety? Do they understand why they're doing things? Do they feel they own it? Do they feel that what they are making, which is food, they would take it home and give it to their families? Okay, are they so committed to this process that they are part of it? And I mean, I wanted to talk a little bit about the scoring part, because I read all the guidances, and really the scoring is more complicated. At this point, it seems like unless the failures in food safety are really very high, and that's going to be documented better in the documentation part than in the assessment of the culture, what the auditor is going to do is provide recommendations, maybe minor nonconformities if he sees really that communication is completely failed, or that the employees are not empowered, or that leadership says they go to the floor, but they never walk on the floor. They don't even know if what line is operational or not, or if the operator has trouble handling the packaging material because there's no space and leadership is not even aware of it. Okay, so those kind of realities are going to be those that are going to be alerts for the auditor. But at the end of the day, what GFSI is looking for is to provide the tools to have empowered workforces that are going to be working towards having a food safety culture to guarantee the consistent, successful execution of food safety programs to protect the health of the consumer every day. Manage allergens in a way that they know how to clean. They know how to verify that the cleaning was effective. They know how to validate that cleaning with swabbing and allergen testing, and the employees understand on the floor why they're doing it. It's not a routine, it's the habit, but the habit that they understand why it is important. It makes their role important, it makes them have ownership, and it makes a culture succeed. Thank you.
Great. All right. So we've got some time now. We've got a few questions coming in, and if you haven't asked any yet, now's your time. And thank you for that. You know, one of the biggest questions that we're seeing come in right now, and I'm going to go back a couple of slides, and I'm going to kind of interrogate one of the things that we saw, which was this, the GFSI 5 dimensions of food safety culture. You know, I think a lot of people, if you're just starting out trying to figure out, okay, how do we start doing this? This is the place to focus, right? So Liliana, what I'd like you to do is kind of, if someone had nothing but a blank piece of paper in front of them, using this as the main guide, how would you start to break this down into smaller pieces to start getting the documentation, to start getting the roles defined and the communication set in place? What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, the best way to do it is to build a roadmap. Of course, select here, and I would start priority number 1, okay, which is leadership has a conversation and establishes the mission and the vision with the values of the company. It says, I want to go there and I want to build a culture that has this structure, and here are my values, and this is my purpose, okay? And in that purpose, you have to have as your value that you want to protect health of your consumers, okay? And you have to consider that everybody is a consumer. And then leadership starts setting directions, and you establish your communication tools, your learning and training, okay? And how you're going to be doing your management of incentives and rewards to make sure that you start building the positive attitude, the enhancement of, and with recognition that when things are done right, they're recognized and there's a visibility of things being done right, okay? As you go implementing the culture, you go building the consistency and adaptability pillars, and you incorporate those as your tools for the learning organization module, which is always growing and building. And you bring your risks as part of the total enhancement, okay? So it's building a roadmap with what you want to accomplish when you're ready to go to the next level, and define which are the priorities and the levels that you want to accomplish. The path to build a culture and the path to have a successful culture, every company has their own path and their own speed, okay, according to the needs. Some companies start this because they had a major recall, for example, and they decided that they had all the programs, they had everything right, but they had a major recall. So what failed? Failures come from the people that are doing it. Even when an equipment is not right, it's the people that did not realize that the equipment was failing. So they decide that they have to address the behaviors to be successful in having a strong, consistent food safety culture that can adapt to the change. So build a roadmap and incorporate each of these in a path of growing. And in that maturity model, you're in learning mode and in building mode for the 5 dimensions at the beginning, and you start establishing what are your milestones to determine you got to the next level, okay? You develop tools to be able to assess how your tool is working on the floor, how you're verifying. You can establish KPIs, your food safety guys, as part of the taking the temperature of your tool, but also talk to the people, listen to them, communicate with them, and give them the possibility of sharing their concerns. I have discovered throughout my career that when I talk to the workforce and I ask them how they would do things, they're very aware, they're very knowledgeable, and they have helped build great programs with their input, okay? Great training tools, great execution tools.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love that, because this is a bit of a roadmap right here. And I would also just add one thing, as you go through that roadmap and you go step by step, and I love, get the executive initiative in place. I would say, make sure that the executives are bought in to the point where they should be curious. Check in on this project. Hey, how are we doing about food safety culture, guys? Where are we at? Can you show me progress, right? Be inquisitive. But as you go through this roadmap, ask your teams relentlessly, how do we show this? What is the question that we would ask somebody that's on the floor? What's do we build a small survey instrument that gives us the ability to assess ourselves, right? Those self-audits, that self-questioning will then develop into that program that you are going to be able to show other people, because this is about measuring it and being able to audit it too. So fantastic.
Yes.
So got a couple other questions. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's why I said, make sure you communicate and you talk and you review with them what's working and what's not. That's an audit, but it's a targeted audit towards the behaviors, okay? And take a temperature on the floor. And the expectation for leadership is not only to verify that it's working, to be part of it, to participate, to be present where things are happening, so that they can understand firsthand the needs and areas of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got one here. It says most of the guidance documents refer primarily to plants and manufacturing environments. Are there plans to better define this for, let's say, retail grocery or restaurant establishments, or will the same guidelines be used? I think that's a great question that I haven't even thought of. Liliana, can you shine a little light on, downstream? We're talking about manufacturing, but what about, where we go pick up our food?
You're right. The model is designed for everybody. Probably you have to look at it from maybe a little bit of a difference for the retail industry, or like you said, where you go to pick up your sandwich. The model can be applied. It's going to be much more targeted, but the components are the same to build a culture. Okay, even if it is a small mom and pop store, creating a vision and a mission, thinking about the people, trying to be consistent in how you do your job to make safe food, and being adaptable to change. The pillars are the same. How you manage them and what tools you create to manage them is going to be the difference. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So one last question. I know we're over time, and we still got a bunch of people on the phone. A lot of people ask, hey, is this recording going to be available? Absolutely. Look for your inbox We'll get this out to y'all. But another viewer asked, as I look at the 5 dimensions, I'm wondering if these points apply equally across all prerequisite programs within food safety, or is there customization for the various aspects? For example, is the process or culture the same for foreign supplier verification and a pest program? So breaking it down, is there nuances between different areas like FSVP or pest control?
This is a process to manage culture, to create habits and behaviors, and to sustain those. So you can apply this to any process, and what's going to change is what the drivers are going to be. For the pest control company, your vision and your mission are going to be very specific, targeted to make sure that the team involved understands the importance of what they're doing to not have pests in the working environment, okay? And the people that manage it are aware that what they're doing is relevant because they are protecting the food, and they have good education and good learning on why they're doing it, what kind of pesticides they're applying. So the drivers are the same. What changes is how targeted versus broad is the program, and what is your model of growth, and what's your maturity model for one or the other. But this is a culture base that can be applied to any model.
Yeah, and I would agree. This is an umbrella over all of the programs that you would ever classically or any other way define food safety. So, well, listen.
Yep.
Liliana, this has been fantastic. We've got a few more questions. We do have to go, but I want to thank you once again for joining us. This is fantastic. We love diving into food safety culture here at SafetyChain. We love that the partnership we have with the Atchison Group as well, and I appreciate your passion here. And so with that, we'll leave everyone. We do have another FSMA Friday coming up in March, and that's going to be with Lily Yang. So we're excited to showcase that. We'll be getting you more information while we put it together. But Liliana, thank you again for joining.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody that was participating. It was really a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
And with that, everyone, that ends our FSMA Friday for February. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.